Communication is not just talking. It's connection. It's how you move people without touching them. It's how you inspire action without force. Every relationship, every success, every dream depends on how well you communicate. This is not another theory book. It's a transformation. A guide to make your voice confident, your message clear, and your presence unforgettable. If you're ready to master the art of communication in 1 hour, stay with me. And make sure to subscribe, because your next words could change everything. Chapter 1: The Power of Connection. Connection is the heartbeat of communication. Without it, words are just noise. You can speak perfectly. You can sound smart. You can even say everything right. But if people don't feel connected to you, your message disappears before it lands. The greatest speakers in history didn't win hearts with vocabulary. They won them with emotion, with presence, with truth. Because connection begins where performance ends. You don't have to sound powerful to connect. You just have to be real. People can sense authenticity instantly. They can hear it in your tone. They can see it in your eyes. They can feel it in your pauses. Connection is invisible, but it's undeniable. It's that quiet energy between your words, the sincerity behind your smile, the honesty in your silence. You can't fake it. You can only feel it. When you truly connect, people stop listening with their ears. They start listening with their hearts. That's when communication turns into influence. The power of connection begins with presence. Be where you are, completely. Don't rush your thoughts. Don't think about the next line. Just be with the person in front of you. When you give someone your full attention, you give them something rare: respect. And that respect creates trust. Connection grows in small moments. The eye contact during a meeting, the pause before replying, the warmth in a thank you. Every little gesture builds emotional bridges, brick by brick, moment by moment. Connection doesn't need a stage. It thrives in silence too. Sometimes it's not the words that heal. It's the way you're there while saying nothing. At work, connection builds collaboration. It turns colleagues into allies. It transforms tasks into teamwork. A connected team communicates faster, works smoother, and stays stronger. Because connection builds understanding, and understanding ends friction. When people feel seen, they relax. When they relax, they open up. And when they open up, communication becomes effortless. That's the power of human connection. It simplifies everything. Even conflict softens when connection is present. You can disagree without disconnecting. You can correct without hurting. You can lead without controlling. Connection gives your words emotional weight. It makes even a whisper feel meaningful. You don't need to impress. You need to express. Real communication starts with empathy, understanding before responding, feeling before explaining. When you speak from understanding, you don't just share information, you share emotion. And that's what people remember. They may forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. Every workplace, every relationship thrives or collapses based on this truth. Communication without connection is transaction. Communication with connection is transformation. To master the art of communication, you must master the power of connection first. Learn to see beyond words. Learn to feel what others feel. Learn to listen with your whole body. Because connection is not what you say. It's what you are when you say it. It's the energy you bring into the room, the calm in your tone, the authenticity in your gaze. Once you understand this, you stop talking to people. You start connecting with souls. That's when communication stops being a skill. It becomes a superpower, a power that builds trust, creates belonging, and opens every door that words alone cannot. Chapter 2: The Psychology of Speaking and Listening. Communication is not a talent. It's psychology. It's understanding how the human mind reacts to words, how people hear tone before they hear meaning, how silence speaks louder than sentences. Every time you speak, You're not just transferring information, you're shaping emotion. That's why great communicators don't speak to impress. They speak to connect. They know that the mind listens with emotion first, logic second. People don't remember what you said. They remember how it made them feel. The psychology of communication begins with awareness. Awareness of how people perceive, process, and respond. When you speak, the listener's mind instantly asks two silent questions. Do I trust you? Do I feel safe with you? If the answer is no, your words won't reach their heart, no matter how brilliant they sound. That's why connection comes before persuasion. Motion before explanation. Trust before truth. When you speak with warmth, you lower people's defenses. They listen openly. They hear deeply. But when you speak with tension, the brain registers danger. It stops listening. It prepares to resist. Tone decides everything. Your words enter through the ear, but your tone enters through the heart. If your tone carries peace, your message lands softly. If your tone carries anger, your message gets rejected, no matter how correct it is. Listening is the other half of this psychology. People don't just want to be heard. They want to be understood. When you listen deeply, you give people emotional validation. You make them feel important. And that feeling makes them open to you. The best communicators listen more than they speak, because listening reveals what the other person truly needs to hear. When you listen, you collect emotional data. You hear patterns. You sense moods. You feel motives. That awareness gives your words precision. You don't shoot randomly. You speak directly to what matters. The mind responds best to empathy. When someone feels understood, their brain relaxes. They stop protecting their ego. They start receiving your message. That's why understanding psychology is more powerful than perfect grammar. You can have flawless sentences, but if your tone carries tension, you'll still lose the listener. And you can stumble on words. But if your tone carries sincerity, you'll still touch hearts. In every conversation, you're managing energy, not just language. Energy decides connection. Energy decides emotion. And emotion decides understanding. The psychology of communication is emotional rhythm. Speak too fast, you sound anxious. Speak too slow, you lose impact. Speak too loud, you sound dominant. Speak too soft, you sound unsure. Balance is the art. Clarity is the goal. Warmth is the bridge. The human brain loves clarity. When your message is simple, the mind relaxes. When your message is cluttered, the mind shuts down. That's why short sentences hold more power than long speeches. They travel faster through emotion, and they stick longer in memory. Listening, too, is psychological training. It requires patience. To hear beyond words. When someone speaks, notice their body language. Notice their breathing. Notice their eyes. They reveal more than their words ever could. True listening is silent empathy. It's saying, I see you, without interrupting, without judging. When people feel heard, they stop shouting. When people feel seen, they stop hiding. That's the moment when communication becomes healing. You can transform any conversation if you understand emotion. Every argument is just emotion asking to be acknowledged. Every silence is emotion, waiting for safety. Your job is not to control emotion. It's to guide it, to speak in a way that lowers tension, and to listen in a way that raises trust. That's what great communicators do differently. They don't dominate. They harmonize. Speaking and listening are not opposites. They are one dance. When one moves too fast, the other stumbles. When both move in sync, connection happens. And once you understand that rhythm, you can communicate with anyone, anywhere. Because you're no longer reacting to people's words. You're responding to their emotions. That's mastery. To speak in a way that calms minds, and to listen in a way that heals hearts. That's not just communication. That's art. Chapter 3. Clarity. The language of understanding. Clarity is confidence. When your message is clear, your presence becomes powerful. Confusion breaks trust, but clarity builds it. People don't respect complicated words. They respect clear ones. Because clarity doesn't just make you understood. It makes you believable. The human brain loves simplicity. It can only process what it understands. When your words are tangled, your message disappears in the noise. That's why great communicators master the art of clarity. They know how to turn complex thoughts into simple truths. Clarity is not about speaking less. It's about removing everything that hides the truth. You don't need to sound smart. You need to sound real. Because clarity is honesty in language. It's truth, without decoration. In a world full of noise, clarity feels like calm. It's the pause that helps people breathe. It's the moment someone says, "Now I understand." That moment, that spark of understanding, is power. When you speak clearly, you guide the listener's mind. You make it easy for them to follow your rhythm. And when they follow your rhythm, they trust your direction. Clarity makes people feel safe, and safety opens the door to influence. In conversation, the goal is not to impress, it's to illuminate. When you simplify your message, you amplify your impact. The most brilliant communicators don't use heavy words, they use heartfelt ones. Because understanding is not built in the brain. It's built in the heart. Clarity starts inside you. You can't speak clearly if you think chaotically. Before you talk, organize your mind. Know your message. Feel your purpose. The clearer your mind, the clearer your words. When your intention is scattered, your sentences sound lost. When your intention is pure, your words flow naturally. Clarity is the discipline of thought made visible through speech. Even silence can be clear if your intention is clear. A quiet nod, a pause, a calm tone, they all carry messages. Clarity is not volume. It's precision. It's direction. It's truth. The moment you say what you mean, without confusion, without hesitation, you earn respect. Clarity is kindness. Because when you make your message easy to understand, you make life easier for everyone around you. Miscommunication is the root of most conflict. People argue not because they disagree, but because they misunderstand. One wrong tone, one vague word, one missing detail, and understanding collapses. That's why the best communicators check for clarity constantly. They don't assume they're understood. They make sure of it. In leadership, clarity is everything. Unclear instruction creates frustration, but clear guidance creates confidence. Clarity saves time. Clarity prevents mistakes. Clarity turns confusion into cooperation. When you speak with clarity, you give people direction. When you listen with clarity, you give people validation. Both are essential for harmony. Clarity is also emotional balance. You can't speak clearly when you're angry. You can't listen clearly when you're defensive. Calmness gives you perspective, and perspective gives you clarity. So before you speak, breathe. Center your thoughts. Let emotions settle before expression. Clarity is born in stillness. It's refined in patience. When your words come from that calm, centered place, they travel deeper. People start to say, "Whenever you talk, I understand things better." That's not just communication. That's leadership. Because leaders aren't the ones who speak the loudest. They're the ones who make things make sense. Clarity is leadership in words. It organizes chaos. It turns vision into action. When you explain something simply, you prove that you truly understand it. Einstein once said, "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough." That's the essence of clarity. It's not a performance, it's understanding made visible. The deeper you understand something, the simpler you can say it. And the simpler you say it, the stronger it lands. Clarity turns messages into memories. It makes your words repeat in someone's mind long after you've stopped speaking. Every great speech, every powerful idea is remembered because it was clear, simple enough to be understood. strong enough to be repeated. Clarity is the soul of influence. It's not what you say that moves people, it's what they clearly understand and feel. So when you speak, ask yourself, is this message clean or cluttered? Does it breathe or does it choke? Does it lift or confuse? You don't need big words, you need honest ones. Because the clearer your message, the deeper your impact. Clarity builds bridges, confusion builds walls. Choose your words like a sculptor chooses shape. Remove what's unnecessary, and what remains will shine. The world listens more to those who make things simple, because simplicity is rare. And clarity, true clarity, is the language of understanding. Chapter 4. The emotional energy of words. Words are not just sounds, they are energy. Every word you speak carries a vibration that moves through emotion before it reaches understanding. A calm word heals. A harsh word hurts. A kind word inspires. A careless word destroys. The emotional energy behind your words decides how people receive you. You might forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. That is the invisible law of communication. Emotion always arrives before meaning. The tone, the rhythm, the pauses. They all carry emotional messages. You don't have to say "I'm angry" for people to know you are. Your energy says it for you. You don't have to say "I care" for people to feel it. Your softness says it for you. That's why the best communicators don't only speak, they transmit energy. When your intention is pure, your words heal even when they're hard. When your intention is cold, your words hurt even when they're kind. Emotion gives life to language. It's what turns information into inspiration. A single sentence said with passion can change someone's day. A careless sentence said in haste can break someone's confidence. That's the power of emotional energy. Your voice carries your inner world. If your heart is heavy, your tone will sound tired. If your spirit is calm, your words will sound peaceful. If your soul is inspired, your words will shine. You can't fake energy. It reveals your truth. That's why before you speak, you must align your energy with your intention. Ask yourself, do I want to comfort or correct? Do I want to build or break? Do I want to lift or lower? Every word carries a choice. The emotional tone of your speech creates the emotional climate of your environment. A positive tone builds trust. A bitter tone builds walls. Leaders who speak with warmth create loyal teams. Parents who speak with patience raise confident children. Friends who speak with kindness build unbreakable bonds. Emotion is the thread that holds human communication together. When your words and your feelings match, people trust you. When they don't, people withdraw. Authenticity is emotional alignment. Your words reflect what your heart believes. Even silence has emotional energy. A silent presence can feel safe, or it can feel cold, depending on the energy behind it. So control your inner atmosphere before you speak. A storm inside will always leak through your voice. But when you speak from calmness, your words carry peace. Every emotion vibrates. Anger is sharp. Joy is light. Fear is heavy. Love is warm. When you communicate, you transfer these vibrations. Your listener feels them subconsciously. That's why emotional awareness is the secret behind magnetic communication. You don't need to force people to listen. You just need to make them feel something. Emotion is memory's anchor. We forget details, but we remember feelings. You remember the teacher who encouraged you. Not every word she said, but how she made you believe in yourself. You remember the friend who understood you. Not every conversation, but the comfort in their voice. That's the emotional signature of communication. When your words carry compassion, they stay in people's hearts long after your voice is gone. But to reach that level, you must learn emotional responsibility. Never speak from your wound. Speak from your wisdom. Pain can make your words sharp. Ego can make them loud. But love makes them lasting. Before you speak, pause. Check your tone. Ask, does this word bring light or shadow? Every tone has a consequence. Every word has a direction. Emotion builds or breaks energy flow. Use it wisely. In the workspace, emotional energy determines culture. A leader's anger can poison a team. A leader's calm can heal it. People don't quit jobs, they quit emotional environments. That's how powerful communication energy is. When words are rooted in empathy, they turn chaos into cooperation. When they're rooted in ego, they turn teamwork into tension. That's why great communicators practice emotional intelligence before emotional expression. They don't just think before they speak, they feel before they speak. And when they speak, their words feel alive. A calm tone during pressure becomes leadership. A gentle word during conflict becomes healing. A clear phrase during confusion becomes guidance. This is the emotional geometry of words. Shape them with care. Your words are your energy in motion. They travel beyond your mouth. They enter someone's heart. And once they enter, they stay. So use words that you'd want to live in someone's mind forever. Speak with purpose. Speak with presence. Speak with peace. Because communication is not what you say. It's what your energy says through you. That's the secret behind all great speakers, leaders, and healers. Their power doesn't come from language. It comes from energy. The energy of honesty. The energy of empathy. The energy of love. That's what moves people. That's what creates connection. That's what changes lives. Chapter 5. The Science of Persuasion. Persuasion is not manipulation. It's understanding. It's not about control. It's about connection. The most persuasive people in the world don't force you to believe them. They make you want to. That's the quiet science behind influence. It's not power over others. It's power with others. When you understand human psychology, you realize persuasion begins long before you speak. People are not convinced by facts first. They are convinced by feelings. Emotion creates movement. Logic only confirms it. The heart decides. And the mind justifies. That's why your words don't need to be perfect. They need to be felt. Persuasion begins the moment someone feels you understand them. Once they feel understood, they start to trust. And trust opens the door to influence. The science is simple. People don't buy products. They buy feelings. They don't follow leaders. They follow belief. They don't respond to pressure. They respond to purpose. When your message aligns with their emotions, your voice becomes magnetic. That's emotional resonance, the heartbeat of persuasion. You cannot persuade through information alone. You must create identification. Show people that you see them, that you get what they feel, that your words come from the same struggle, the same hope, the same human place they live in. That's how you dissolve resistance. People resist being sold to, but they never resist being understood. Every persuasive message rests on 3 pillars: ethos, pathos, and logos. Ethos is credibility, why they should listen to you. Pathos is emotion, why they should care. Logos is logic, why your message makes sense. When these 3 align, persuasion becomes natural. You don't have to push your message. It flows. Think of a great speaker. Before they share data, they share a story. Before they prove a point, they build trust. Before they convince, they connect. That's not performance. That's psychology. Humans follow emotional patterns more than rational ones. We decide emotionally, then use logic to justify the decision we already made. That's why persuasion must always begin with empathy. If you can make someone feel seen, they'll listen to you even if they disagree. If you can make someone feel safe, they'll stay even when the message challenges them. The mind opens only when the heart feels safe. That's the secret every great communicator knows. When you speak to convince, you sound like a seller. When you speak to serve, you sound like a leader. Persuasion without integrity is manipulation, but persuasion with empathy is leadership. True persuasion never forces, it guides. It doesn't demand agreement. It inspires understanding. The science of persuasion is built on energy exchange. It's not what you say, it's what people feel while you say it. Even your pauses persuade. A calm pause creates authority. A rushed tone creates pressure. Silence is a tool in persuasion. It gives people space to think. And when they think, they often agree. Persuasion also depends on timing. You can say the right thing at the wrong time and lose the moment. Great communicators sense emotional timing. They know when to speak, when to wait, and when to listen. Because persuasion is rhythm. It's not a straight line, it's a dance of awareness. When you understand that rhythm, you stop trying to win people's minds. You start earning their hearts. Persuasion begins with curiosity. Before trying to influence anyone, ask yourself, what do they need right now? Do they need clarity, comfort, confidence? The more you understand their needs, the more naturally your message fits their emotions. That's why persuasion feels effortless when it's honest. Because you're not forcing belief, you're inviting it. Even in negotiation, persuasion is empathy. In strategy, the person who listens more holds more power. They understand what matters to the other side. And when you understand someone deeply, you can align your message with their desires. That's how you lead through language. The tone of persuasion is calm, not aggressive. It's confident, not loud. It's humble, not fearful. Powerful persuaders don't overpower. They out-understand, because when people feel understood, they naturally follow your reasoning. Confidence without pressure feels trustworthy. Certainty without arrogance feels magnetic. When you combine both, your words carry influence that lasts. Persuasion is not a one-time act. It's a reputation. People are persuaded more by who you are than what you say. Character convinces faster than language. You can't speak one truth and live another, because people believe your energy before your words. Integrity amplifies influence. The moment people feel you are genuine, they lower their defenses. They stop analyzing. They start aligning. That's why the best persuasion happens through presence. Be honest. Be grounded. Be calm. You can't persuade from fear. You can't inspire from ego. You persuade best when you speak from peace. The peace that says, I don't need you to agree. I just need you to understand. That's emotional authority. When your intention is clean, your words carry weight. They stop sounding like arguments. They start feeling like guidance. And that's the kind of persuasion the world listens to. Because people don't want to be convinced. They want to be moved. Chapter 6. The Power of Tone and Delivery. Words may carry meaning, but tone carries truth. You can say the same sentence in 10 different ways, and it will create 10 different emotions. Tone decides how your message is received. Delivery decides if it's remembered. Your tone is your emotional fingerprint. It reveals more than your vocabulary ever could. Before people hear your words, they feel your energy. If your tone carries warmth, your message feels safe. If your tone carries irritation, your message feels heavy. If your tone carries calm confidence, your message feels trustworthy. That's the secret behind powerful communication. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it. Tone is emotion in motion. Delivery is emotion in direction. Both must move together. The voice that commands attention is not always loud. It's the one that carries certainty. Certainty comes from calmness, not chaos. When you speak calmly, people lean in. When you rush, they pull back. Silence is a tool of delivery. It's the breath between words that gives them weight. Most people fear silence, but great communicators use it to control rhythm. Because silence is where attention resets. Every powerful speaker knows this. The pause is not the absence of words. It's the presence of power. The human brain can only absorb meaning when given time. A pause allows your words to land. It lets emotion catch up to logic. Delivery is rhythm. Every sentence is a beat. Every pause is a rest. If your delivery flows like music, your message will move people emotionally. That's why good communication is not monotone. It's dynamic. Change your pace when you tell a story. Slow down when you make a point. Lower your tone when you express truth. Raise it when you express passion. Variety keeps attention alive. The same voice at the same speed kills emotion. But when your tone dances between calm and energy, you hold the listener without force. Think about how a parent comforts a crying child. Their tone is soft, gentle, steady. No big words, just warmth. That's emotional mastery through tone. Now imagine a leader speaking to their team after failure. If their tone is defensive, the team feels guilt. If their tone is calm and compassionate, the team feels courage. That's the power of delivery. Your delivery can either build walls or open doors. Every great communicator blends tone with timing. They sense when the listener is open, when the moment needs power, and when it needs peace. Delivery is awareness in action. It's your emotional intelligence in sound form. Your tone tells the listener how to feel. Even before your message is clear, your energy gives them direction. Speak with warmth. They feel safe. Speak with tension. They feel pressure. Speak with joy. They feel hope. That's how communication becomes emotional architecture. Tone shapes the emotional structure of every conversation. It's not volume that makes you heard. It's alignment. When your tone matches your intention, your words ring true. But when they don't match, people sense it instantly. You can say I'm fine, but if your tone is empty, everyone knows you're not. Authenticity lives in tone. That's why tone and delivery can't be faked for long. They reveal your inner world. Before you speak, check your energy. Your tone will always mirror it. If you're angry, cool your heart. If you're anxious, slow your breath. If you're afraid, ground your posture. The calmer you are, the clearer you sound. Your voice carries your state of mind. That's why great communicators don't just train their voice. They train their emotions. Tone is emotional awareness turned into sound. Even the smallest shifts matter. A soft thank you feels different from a loud one. A slow "I understand" feels deeper than a quick one. Small tonal differences create massive emotional outcomes. Your delivery can heal tension or create it. It can make people feel seen or dismissed. It all depends on your emotional control. Every message has a frequency. The higher your awareness, the more precise your tone. If you speak from frustration, you transmit resistance. If you speak from clarity, you transmit peace. That's the physics of communication. Energy always transfers. Your tone is the bridge between your intention and their emotion. Even your body affects delivery. A tense body creates a tense tone. Relax your shoulders, and your voice will follow. Your breath is the engine of delivery. Control your breath, and you control your message. Breathe before you speak. Pause before you reply. Deliver from presence, not pressure. Delivery is not performance, it's awareness. You're not trying to sound impressive. You're trying to sound intentional. Because communication is not about showing power. It's about transferring energy clearly. When you master tone, you can lead without shouting. You can comfort without words. You can inspire without effort. That's mastery. The secret? Match your tone to your message. When you speak about pain, soften. When you speak about strength, anchor. When you speak about vision, rise. Your tone must carry the emotion of the truth you're expressing. Because tone doesn't decorate meaning, it delivers it. That's why listeners remember tone longer than words. The message fades, but the feeling stays. A voice of calm during chaos becomes unforgettable. A voice of hope during despair becomes sacred. Tone is humanity's oldest instrument. Before language, there was sound. Before words, there was rhythm. Your tone still carries that ancient power. Use it to bring peace where there's pressure. Use it to bring focus where there's noise. Use it to bring truth where there's fear. Because when your delivery carries sincerity, your words become alive. And that's when communication stops being talking. It becomes transformation. Tone and delivery are not techniques. They are the heartbeat of influence. Once you master them, your voice will no longer just speak. It will move souls. Chapter 7. The Art of Silence and Pause. Silence is not emptiness. It's awareness. It's the space between thoughts where truth breathes. It's the pause between words where meaning lives. Most people fear silence. They rush to fill it. But great communicators know silence is not the absence of sound. It's the presence of understanding. When you master silence, you gain control over attention. Every word that follows a pause feels heavier, sharper, more powerful. Because silence builds anticipation. It tells the listener something important is coming. In a world that speaks too much, silence stands out like wisdom. You don't have to speak louder to be heard. You just have to speak less and let silence do the rest. The pause is not hesitation. It's emphasis. It's your invisible underline, your way of saying, listen closely. This matters. Every great speaker uses silence as rhythm. They know that communication is music, and music without pause is just noise. Silence gives words their shape. It's the frame that gives language meaning. Without pause, there is no presence. Without presence, there is no connection. When you pause, you invite your listener to think. You let your words sink in, because understanding doesn't happen while you're talking. It happens while they're reflecting. That's the secret of silence. It gives people time to feel your words, not just hear them. A well-timed pause can create more emotion than 1,000 explanations. Silence is emotional punctuation. It tells your listener when to breathe, when to absorb, when to believe. Most communicators fill space with speed, but true mastery comes from stillness. It takes courage to pause. Takes awareness to stay quiet, because silence exposes your truth. It shows whether you're grounded or nervous, centered or scattered. A confident communicator is never afraid of quiet. They trust the power of their presence. You see it in leaders who speak few words but command full rooms. They don't rush. They don't chase reaction. They let silence do the talking. Silence magnifies meaning. It creates tension where you want focus, and peace where you want trust. It balances your delivery. It slows your breath and stabilizes your energy. That's why silence is not a gap in communication. It's the glue that holds it together. When you pause, you show control. You make the conversation yours. You dictate the rhythm instead of reacting to it. Pauses also protect you from impulsive reactions. A single second of silence can save you from a lifetime of regret. In argument, silence diffuses fire. In fear, silence gives clarity. In stress, silence gives strength. When you learn to pause before you speak, you move from reaction to response. And that's where wisdom lives. The pause between thought and speech is where emotional intelligence begins. Silence gives you time to hear your own tone. It helps you choose words that heal instead of hurt. In leadership, silence is power. The leader who listens more earns more respect, because silence says, I value your voice too. And people feel that. A quiet nod can carry more meaning than a long speech. A simple breath can turn chaos into calm. That's the art of pause. It gives space for presence. In conversations, silence creates intimacy. It allows emotions to surface. It lets vulnerability feel safe. When you stay silent after someone opens up, you give them permission to feel, to process, to exist without being fixed. That's empathy without words. Silence is also the secret of storytelling. Every pause builds suspense. Every breath builds emotion. A story without pause feels flat, but a story with rhythm feels alive. It's the pause that lets the listener enter the moment, to see what you see, to feel what you feel. The greatest speakers are great, not because of their words, but because of the space between them. They understand that silence has texture. It can be soft or strong, heavy or healing. The right pause can create trust, while the wrong rush can destroy it. That's why silence must be intentional. It's not about staying quiet. It's about staying conscious. Silence becomes your weapon when it's used with awareness. You can disarm anger with it. You can hold attention with it. You can show power without a single word. Silence is the language of emotional control. When others shout, you stay grounded. When others rush, you breathe. When others react, you pause. That's what separates emotional maturity from impulsive reaction. The pause is not weakness. It's wisdom choosing timing over noise. Even in performance, silence directs emotion. Actors pause before big moments to let tension build. Musicians pause before final notes to let hearts prepare. Speakers pause to let words echo in memory. That's how emotion transfers. Because emotion needs time to travel. The pause gives your listener that time. It lets them meet you halfway, not just with their ears, but with their heart. Silence also strengthens confidence. When you speak less, you value your voice more. You stop competing for space. You start commanding it. A silent pause after a key point tells the audience, "I said something worth thinking about." That's how you turn simple communication into impact. The more you master silence, the less you need to prove, because your calm becomes your confidence. Silence is not absence of message. It's presence of mastery. When you speak after silence, your words sound deeper. They carry the echo of awareness. Even nature communicates this truth. Thunder makes noise, but it's silence that gives peace. The wind moves quietly, yet it changes everything. You don't need to fill silence with words. You need to fill it with meaning. So the next time you speak, let your pauses breathe. Let your silence speak, because sometimes what's not said speaks the loudest. Chapter 8. Building Trust Through Consistency. Trust is not built in moments. It's built in patterns. One good conversation can make people like you, but only consistent communication can make them trust you. Trust is the foundation of every relationship, personal or professional, emotional or transactional. Without trust, even truth sounds suspicious. With trust, even silence feels safe. Consistency is the invisible thread that holds trust together. You don't earn trust by speaking perfectly. You earn it by showing up repeatedly, by saying what you mean, and meaning what you say. Every time your words and actions align, trust grows a little stronger. Every time they don't, it cracks a little deeper. Trust is not given, it's proven. People don't trust what they hear once. They trust what they experience over time. That's why consistency is the heartbeat of communication. When you speak the same way you act, when you promise less but deliver more, when your tone stays calm, even under stress, people start to believe in you. Because trust isn't built in the easy moments. It's tested in the hard ones. Anyone can sound sincere once, but only consistency makes sincerity believable. In leadership, trust is currency. Every decision, every message, every tone you use, either deposits or withdraws from your credibility. When you keep your word, even in small things, you strengthen that currency. People trust those who are predictable in principle, not in performance. They trust those whose behavior doesn't change, depending on who's watching. That's integrity in motion. Consistency doesn't mean perfection. It means reliability. It means showing up the same way, in honesty, in energy, in presence, no matter the situation. Because inconsistency creates doubt, and doubt destroys connection. If your tone changes every day, if your attitude depends on mood, if your honesty fluctuates under pressure, people will stop listening. But when your calm stays the same, your message gains power. Trust is built through emotional steadiness. The person who doesn't panic when things go wrong becomes the anchor others hold on to. Your consistency becomes your credibility. Even silence becomes trustworthy when people know your intentions never shift. At work, consistency builds culture. It sets emotional tone. When leaders communicate with fairness, when they give feedback with the same respect every time, people feel safe to grow. Safety creates loyalty, and loyalty creates performance. That's why trust is not about charisma. It's about constancy. A voice that speaks truth once earns attention. A voice that speaks truth always earns loyalty. People don't follow words. They follow patterns. They observe your tone when you're under stress. They notice your response when others fail. They remember how you treated them when they had nothing to offer. That's when trust is decided. Consistency builds emotional memory. It tells people, you can rely on me, even when life changes. It's not the grand gestures that build credibility. It's the quiet repetition of good behavior. Your daily tone, your steady attitude, your respectful pauses. Every little detail adds up. That's how consistency becomes character. And character is communication. You don't have to speak. The most trustworthy people are not the loudest. They're the most stable, the most predictable in goodness, the most grounded in truth. They make people feel, I know who they are. That feeling is priceless. Inconsistency confuses. Consistency comforts. It's like a familiar rhythm. The steady heartbeat that tells you everything's okay. Even in business, brands survive on consistency. A brand that changes its message too often loses its voice. A communicator who changes their values loses their identity. The same law applies everywhere. Trust follows rhythm. When your communication stays true to its tone, people know what to expect, and what's predictable feels safe. That's why every great leader builds a rhythm of trust, not by speaking often, but by speaking honestly and living consistently. Consistency also builds internal confidence. When you keep your own promises to yourself, you begin to trust your own word. That inner trust becomes outer power. People can sense it. They feel your alignment. They hear your steadiness. They believe you're calm, because you can't lead others in trust if you don't trust yourself first. Your self-consistency creates emotional authority. Every time you act according to your values, you strengthen that authority. Every time you break your own word, you weaken it. The mind remembers repetition. The heart remembers reliability. When both exist together, trust becomes effortless. You no longer have to prove your truth. Your presence speaks for itself. Consistency also brings peace. You stop trying to perform. You just become. You stop worrying about opinions, because your values guide your actions. And when your values are consistent, your voice becomes stable, calm, and powerful. Consistency in words creates clarity. Consistency in behavior creates respect. Consistency in energy creates trust. It's not what you say occasionally that defines you. It's what you repeat daily. The way you greet people, the way you listen, the way you respond under stress. These small consistencies build emotional fingerprints in others. They remember you for how you made them feel, not for what you made them think. Trust is emotional familiarity. It's the quiet knowing, this person won't surprise me in a bad way. That's why consistency isn't boring. It's comforting. It's what makes people stay. A relationship without consistency becomes anxiety. A leader without consistency becomes noise. A communicator without consistency becomes confusion. But when your tone, your truth, and your timing stay aligned, you become someone people can depend on. And that dependability is the highest form of influence. Because trust doesn't make you louder. It makes you lasting. People may forget your speeches. They may forget your achievements. But they'll never forget your reliability. That's how trust works. It fades slowly when broken, but grows quietly when nurtured. So build it like a gardener, not a sprinter. Water it daily with integrity. Protect it with consistency, and let time make it unshakable. Because in the end, true communication isn't about how well you speak. It's about how consistently you live what you speak. Chapter 9. The Confidence of Simplicity. Simplicity is not weakness. It's strength under control. Anyone can complicate things, but it takes real confidence to keep them simple. Simplicity is not the absence of depth. It's the clarity that comes after understanding everything deeply. The greatest communicators don't speak to confuse. They speak to clarify. They don't try to sound smart. They try to make others feel understood. That's the quiet confidence of simplicity. Because simplicity is not about saying less. It's about saying only what matters. Every word that doesn't serve the truth dilutes the message. Every extra sentence you add for approval weakens the impact. Simplicity is focus. It's precision. It's purpose without decoration. When you speak simply, you show you're not trying to prove anything. You already know who you are. The insecure hide behind complexity. The confident hide behind clarity. A simple communicator doesn't rush to impress. They let their calm do the work. Their tone is grounded. Their rhythm is steady. Their message is easy to follow. And because it's easy to follow, it's hard to forget. Simplicity is timeless. It's what makes the greatest speeches survive generations. Think of Martin Luther King Jr. I have a dream. 4 words, but they carried a lifetime of meaning. Simplicity doesn't reduce your power. It refines it. It removes noise until only truth remains. When you strip away excess, you uncover essence. And essence is what moves people. The more clearly you speak, the more people trust you. Because simplicity feels honest. It feels clean. It feels real. Complicated words create distance. Simple words build bridges. The purpose of communication is not to impress, it's to express. When your message is clear, your presence feels powerful. Because confidence is not loud. It's calm. Confidence doesn't shout, it states. Simplicity gives your communication that calm authority. It tells the listener, I know my truth. I don't need to decorate it. And that energy commands respect without demanding it. The more confident you are, the simpler you sound. Because you've stopped performing. You've started connecting. Simplicity is the language of truth. When you're clear, you give people peace. They don't have to decode you. They can just receive you. That's why simplicity is an act of generosity. It's you saying, I care enough to make this easy for you. The ego complicates. Empathy simplifies. Simplicity is kindness disguised as clarity. The most beautiful conversations are never the most decorated ones. They are the ones that feel light, like fresh air after a storm. That's what simplicity does. It clears the clutter. It makes space for meaning to breathe. When you communicate simply, you create stillness. You create safety. You create understanding. And understanding is the highest form of connection. Simplicity also saves energy. You don't waste emotion explaining what doesn't matter. You don't drain people with words that add no value. You say less, but your words travel further. That's efficiency of the heart. People remember simple truths because they fit into memory. The brain holds what the heart recognizes. Complexity impresses for a moment. Simplicity impacts for a lifetime. Even in business, clarity sells more than creativity. A clear promise beats a clever slogan. Simplicity helps people decide, because decision follows understanding. If people don't understand you, they can't trust you. If they can't trust you, they won't follow you. That's why simplicity is the foundation of influence. It removes confusion. It removes resistance. It removes fear. You make people feel, this makes sense, and that feeling is power. Simplicity also reflects maturity. When you stop chasing validation, you start choosing clarity. You don't need to sound extraordinary. You just need to sound real. Simplicity doesn't shrink your intelligence. It amplifies it. Because the deepest understanding always sounds the simplest. You don't need to complicate truth. Truth speaks plainly. The confident communicator doesn't hide behind jargon. They speak in human language because they know the goal is not to sound superior, but to be understood. Simplicity is the mark of mastery. It's what remains after you've learned everything and let go of everything unnecessary. It's the quiet after the storm of knowledge, the peace after confusion, the clarity after experience. That's why simplicity feels powerful. It carries the weight of wisdom without the noise of pride. Every time you simplify your message, you strengthen your voice. You make it easier for truth to travel and harder for ego to interrupt. Confidence is not about having all the answers. It's about speaking from awareness, not anxiety. You don't need to fill every silence. You don't need to justify every thought. You don't need to prove every point. You just need to mean what you say. That's simplicity in action. And that's real confidence, the kind that doesn't depend on applause. Simplicity brings peace not only to your words, but also to your mind. When you stop overthinking your delivery, your communication flows naturally. You stop trying to sound right. You just sound true. And people feel that truth instantly. The best communicators are never the most dramatic. They're the most grounded. Their simplicity becomes serenity, because in a world full of noise, clarity feels like power. So slow down. Breathe before you speak. Say less, but mean more. That's the art of simplicity. It's not about talking to impress. It's about speaking to express, with grace, with peace, with quiet confidence. Because when your message is simple, your voice becomes unforgettable. Chapter 10, The Legacy of a Great Communicator. A great communicator doesn't just speak well. They live their message. Their words don't end when they stop talking. They continue in the lives they've touched. Because real communication is not about sound. It's about impact. Every word you speak is a seed. Some fall on noise. Some fall on hearts. But the ones spoken with truth grow roots that last forever. That's the legacy of a great communicator. Not fame, not applause, but transformation. They change how people think, how they feel, how they see themselves. They don't chase being heard. They aim to be remembered, and not remembered for noise, but for meaning. The great communicators of history, they didn't need the biggest stage. They just needed courage. The courage to speak truth even when it was unpopular. The courage to stay calm even when others were loud. The courage to choose love over pride. That's what makes a communicator great. Not style, but substance. Greatness in communication begins with sincerity. You can't fake authenticity. People can feel the difference between a performance and presence. When you speak from ego, you demand attention. When you speak from heart, you earn it. And when you earn attention through truth, your words live longer than your voice. The legacy of communication is measured not in words spoken, but in hearts opened. Because when people feel understood, they remember. When they feel valued, they return. When they feel inspired, they change. That's your real echo. Not the sound of your voice, but the lives you elevate. Every interaction you have is an opportunity to leave a trace of peace. Every conversation is a mirror of your character. The more you master empathy, the more your presence becomes healing. Because communication at its highest level is not teaching, it's transferring peace. You make people feel seen. You make them feel capable. You make them believe again. That's legacy. The greatest communicators don't try to dominate. They try to connect. They don't raise their volume. They raise their value. They know that words are tools of creation, and creation demands responsibility. So they choose their words with awareness. They treat communication as sacred, because one careless word can wound a heart, but one sincere sentence can heal it. The legacy of your voice depends on your intention. If your goal is to impress, your words will fade. If your goal is to uplift, your words will live. People won't always remember what you said, but they will always remember what they became because of you. That's why communication is not a career. It's a calling. Every day, you're shaping energy through your voice. You're either adding light or taking it away. The greatest communicators add light. In meetings, in families, in friendships, in silence. Their presence itself becomes communication. You can feel it in their calm. You can sense it in their consistency. You can trust it in their tone. Because when someone speaks from love, their energy lingers long after the sound fades. That's immortality through language. True legacy is invisible. It's written in the emotions of others. It's carried in their confidence, their courage, their calm. Every time you choose patience instead of anger, you communicate maturity. Every time you choose honesty over comfort, you communicate integrity. Every time you choose silence over ego, you communicate mastery. That's the mark of a great communicator. Their greatness doesn't depend on audience size, but on the authenticity of their presence. They can turn a simple conversation into a moment of transformation, because their energy carries truth. The best communicators speak less, but every word feels full. Full of peace, full of power, full of purpose. They know that the goal of communication is not to win. It's to unite, to bring clarity where there's confusion, to bring calm where there's chaos, to bring connection where there's distance. And when that becomes your mission, every conversation becomes sacred, because communication is not something you do. It's something you are. Your tone, your timing, your truth, they form your legacy. Every listener becomes a reflection of what you plant in them. Your patience becomes their peace. Your kindness becomes their kindness. Your clarity becomes their courage. That's how influence multiplies. You don't need millions to hear you. You need one heart to understand you, because one transformed heart can transform 100 more. That's how communication creates eternity, one connection at a time. The great communicator knows that listening is as sacred as speaking. They don't rush to reply. They absorb. They understand. They make people feel, I'm safe here. And that feeling is worth more than every motivational speech in the world, because no one forgets how you made them feel safe. Legacy is not built through performance. It's built through presence. You can build empires with words, but you can heal generations with empathy. That's real communication. That's real impact. That's real leadership. In the end, your voice is temporary, but your energy is eternal. What you say fades. What you mean stays. Your tone, your truth, your patience, they outlive you. So leave behind a trail of peace, not pride, a legacy of light, not noise. Be the kind of communicator whose words don't end conversations. They begin awakenings, because your voice is not just sound. It's soul. And when soul speaks through you, the world listens forever.